They told me not to stay the night. They laughed when they said it, of course, local tour guides trying to keep things light for the American visitor. But even in their humor, something uneasy crept beneath their smiles. It was that kind of joking that hides real fear, like a warning gift wrapped in sarcasm. Castle Fraser, nestled deep in the Aberdeenshire countryside of Scotland, wasn't just one of the most striking baronial castles I'd ever seen. It was also one of the most historically saturated. Every stone of its towering facade whispered centuries of secrets, betrayal, and silence. My name is Elliot Ward. I'm a historical archivist from Boston, tasked with documenting first-hand records and testimonies for a private collection on Scottish hauntings. This was my third stop on the list, but something about Castle Fraser pulled me in more than the others. Maybe it was the stories of the woman in white, the blood that won't scrub from the floor, or the quiet reports of scratching from inside sealed rooms. Maybe it was the dream I had 2 weeks before I arrived. In the dream, I stood in a cold stone hallway. The air smelled of damp rot and old iron. A woman with long black hair and hollow, leaking eyes stared at me through a keyhole. She whispered something through it, but her words came out backwards. I didn't remember the dream fully until my second night at Castle Fraser, but I'll get to that. The National Trust had granted me after-hours access, so long as I didn't disturb anything. I arrived with just a duffel bag, my Canon DSLR, and a leather-bound journal for notes. The archivist in me wanted details, not ghost stories. I wanted verifiable data, not flickering shadows and broken sleep. By day, Castle Fraser was picturesque. Tourists shuffled through the Great Hall, marveling at the centuries-old furniture and grotesque oil portraits that seemed to follow you with their eyes. But as dusk settled and the last car left the gravel lot, something else began to take hold. Silence, not the peaceful kind, but a dense watching silence, as if the very walls were holding their breath. That first night, I stayed in the old servant quarters on the East Wing, converted into guest rooms decades ago. It was simple, bare, but I liked it that way. Around 2 a.m., I heard footsteps, not above, not below, right outside my door. They were light, almost hesitant. I thought perhaps a late-night staff member had stayed behind. I opened the door. Empty hallway. I stood there for a full minute, listening. Nothing, but I could still smell something faint, like burnt hair. I chalked it up to old wood and older nerves. The second night, I reviewed some journals stored in the castle's archive room, just beneath the tower staircase. It was then I found the Journal of Lillian Black, dated 1814. Her entries were clean and poetic, filled with admiration for the castle and dread for what she called the Red Hours. She wrote, "At midnight, the castle shifts. The angles warp. Time loses its straight lines. You feel it in your ears before your eyes catch up." I read that sentence 5 times. She wasn't a known author. She was a maid. A maid who, records show, went missing in 1815. No trace ever found. I copied the entry into my own journal and closed the archive. That night, I had the dream again. Only this time, it didn't feel like a dream. I was in the corridor again. Only now I recognized it. It was the hallway outside the Laird's chamber, top of the West Tower. A hallway I hadn't yet visited. The woman with the hollow eyes stared through the keyhole again. But this time, her lips moved slower. "Let me out." When I woke, I had a metallic taste in my mouth. I turned over in bed, and there, on the pillow beside me, was an iron key. Rusted, old, real. I hadn't brought a key. I hadn't left the door open, and yet there it was. The next day, I requested access to the Laird's chamber. The caretaker hesitated before handing me the tower keys. "You won't find much up there. It's sealed off for a reason," he muttered. When I asked what that reason was, he simply replied, "Not everything old is dead." I ascended the West Tower staircase after lunch. The air grew colder the higher I went. The walls seemed to bow slightly inward, like I was climbing into the throat of something alive. At the top was a hallway with faded red carpet, moth-eaten and brittle. And at the end of that hallway, just as in my dream, was a heavy black door. My heart rattled as I approached. The key, the one from the pillow, fit perfectly. Inside, the air was so cold my breath came out in clouds. The chamber was untouched, dust coated every surface like snow. A massive 4-poster bed stood under rotting drapes. A broken grandfather clock lay collapsed in the corner, and in the far corner of the room, a mirror, tall, cracked, veiled under a sheer black cloth. I approached it slowly. There was something off about its reflection. It lagged slightly. My hand moved, and the reflection hesitated a moment too long before catching up. I pulled the cloth down. The reflection wobbled slightly before settling. My eyes, pale and tired. My face, drawn. But something in the background shifted. A figure stood behind me. In the reflection only, thin, drenched in black. Its face was a blur of static like smeared oil on glass. It raised one bony hand and pointed at my shoulder. I spun around. Nothing. But when I looked back at the mirror, my reflection didn't move. It stood still, staring at me even as I stepped away. I ran, all the way back down the stairs, my steps echoing too loudly. That night, I didn't sleep. I left the lights on and kept the iron key on my chest like a crucifix. At 3:12 a.m., the lights flickered. The mirror in the room's bathroom cracked down the middle, on its own. And then came the whisper, "Come back." I checked the hallway. Empty, but etched into the wood outside my door were words I hadn't seen before. "The red hours begin." The next morning, I packed my things. I was done. I didn't care if I lost the job, if I lost credibility. Something was wrong here. But when I tried to leave, the front gate wouldn't open. It wasn't locked. It wasn't jammed. It simply didn't exist anymore. Where the gate had once stood was now solid stone, same as the outer wall. No exit. I rushed back to the lobby. The caretaker was gone. His office, abandoned. I checked the guest book. My name had been crossed out in red ink. The message underneath simply read, "Time keeps what it's owed." Desperate, I tried my phone. No signal, laptop, no Wi-Fi, car, dead battery. I was trapped. I returned to the archive room, hoping to find answers. In a locked drawer, I found a dusty leather ledger, titled, "The Red Hours Witness Accounts." Inside were dates, dozens of them, all during the new moon. All nights where guests had disappeared, not once, not twice, but every few years, carefully spaced as if something was feeding. The final entry was a name, Elliot Ward, archivist. The date? Tonight. It's 11:42 p.m. now. I'm writing this from the Laird's chamber because I've realized something. That figure in the mirror, the one I thought was following me, it wasn't following me, it was waiting for me. The mirror is covered again, but I can feel it, humming, warm, breathing. I locked the door, iron key around my neck, but it doesn't matter, because I understand now. I've always been part of this place, I just didn't remember. The whispers, they never started. They were calling me back. The red hours begin at midnight, and the thing behind the mirror, it knows my name. The red hours began at midnight. I know that now, not because of Lillian Black's journal, not because of the whispers, not even because the mirror cracked again the moment the clock struck 12, but because when the first scream echoed down the West Tower corridor, it was mine. I had passed out, maybe for a second, maybe for hours, I don't know. What I do know is this, I awoke to darkness, not ordinary darkness, I mean absolute, crushing black, the kind that smothers light like water over a candle. My flashlight, dead. My phone, blank screen. Even the tiny red light on my camera refused to glow. It was as if Castle Fraser itself had severed me from time. But I wasn't alone. Something moved in the darkness with me. I felt its presence before I heard it, like static on my skin, crawling down my spine, buzzing in my molars. A distant scratching, slow and deliberate, echoed through the chamber. Then, a whisper, "Elliot." It said my name as if tasting it, not speaking it, savoring it. I scrambled for the door, key in hand. It wouldn't budge. I twisted it, kicked it, begged it. Still nothing. The scratching grew louder. And then, out of the pitch-black air, a match struck. A single flame hovered mid-air, floating, swaying like it was attached to a hand I couldn't see. Behind it, the figure stepped forward, the woman from the mirror. But now, I could see her. Her face was no longer blurred, it was mine. Hollow, lifeless, dead-eyed, but unmistakably my face. She wore the same clothes I'd worn on my first night at Castle Fraser, only they were tattered, burned at the edges, soaked in something dark and wet. She raised one finger and placed it on her lips, then pointed to the mirror. I don't know what compelled me, curiosity or sheer reckless terror, but I turned. The veil had been pulled back again. The mirror now shimmered like water, and on its surface, scenes flickered like footage from another time. I saw myself, but younger, maybe 8 or 9, standing in a forest, crying. I saw Castle Fraser, only older, crumbling, abandoned. I saw people screaming, clawing at the walls, their mouths open wide, but no sound coming out. And then I saw her, Lillian Black, not just as a maid, but something else, something immortal. The mirror flashed. I was pulled forward, literally dragged. The surface of the glass cracked outward, then split open like a mouth. I screamed. The mirror swallowed me. I fell. Not metaphorically, I physically fell, landed hard on stone, scraping my palms. The air was damp and cold, filled with mildew and something like rotting roses. I was in a different Castle Fraser, same architecture, but decayed, warped, wrong. The sky outside the tower window wasn't sky at all. It was a swirling void of red mist and black stars that blinked like watching eyes. The walls pulsed. They were alive. I wandered for what felt like hours, every room was a twisted version of its real-world counterpart. The dining hall was filled with frozen guests, mid-toast, their eyes carved out and replaced with coins. The music room played on its own, a piano, bleeding keys like teeth, a staircase curved in impossible loops, the steps made of spine-like bones. Every door I opened led somewhere worse, and in every reflection I passed, a window, a polished kettle, a broken glass, she watched, the hollow me. Eventually I found the red room. I knew it was the red room not because of the color, it wasn't red at all, it was gray, lifeless, but it was filled with mirrors. Mirrors lining every inch of the wall, hundreds, all cracked in different patterns. Each one showed a different version of me. In one, I was aged, withered, bones showing through skin. In another, I was smiling, eyes gouged out. In another, I was hanging from the ceiling. But the one at the center, the largest mirror, showed me exactly as I was. And behind me, in that reflection, stood the woman again. Except now she whispered, "Time keeps what it's owed." I turned. She was gone. On the ground before the mirror sat a journal. Not hers, not Lillian's, mine. Same leather cover, same handwriting. Only this journal was filled with entries I hadn't written. March 3rd. The mirror moved again. I saw myself holding the key. I was afraid. March 5th. Lillian spoke to me in the mirror. She says the castle doesn't feed on blood. It feeds on memory. March 7th. I tried to leave. I woke up back in bed. The gate is gone. The caretaker doesn't answer anymore. March 10th. There's another me in the mirror. He looks calm. He said I'll replace him soon. March 15th. I can't remember my name anymore. I dropped the journal, then I noticed on the far wall, one mirror was uncracked, perfect, smooth, and it shimmered with something familiar. My room, my real room, the servants' quarters. Through it, I saw my duffel bag, my clothes, and someone sitting on the bed. Me. He turned and looked at the mirror, right at me, and smiled. Not a sinister smile, a tired one, a knowing one. Then he whispered, "Thank you, I can go now." And just like that, he faded. I stepped toward the mirror. It pulled me in. When I woke, I was back in bed. Morning sunlight poured through the window. The birds chirped. My phone buzzed with full battery and bars of signal. The caretaker stood at the door. "You slept like a log," he said. "Ready to head out?" I blinked, my throat dry. "Yes, please." I left that day, got in my rental and drove away without looking back. But something was wrong. As I passed the gates, now intact, I noticed my reflection in the rearview mirror. It lagged, just slightly, like a frame behind reality. I tried to forget. I left Scotland. I returned home. I even told my employers the castle was clean, boring, nothing to report. They didn't question me, but I never stopped thinking about that place, about the red hours, about her. 3 weeks passed, then last night, the mirror in my bedroom cracked down the middle. I awoke to find my journal on my nightstand. Open to a page I didn't write. It said, "Welcome back, Elliot. You never left." And now, every mirror in my home shows me things I haven't done yet. Like screaming in bed. Like bleeding from the eyes. Like opening my closet and finding the Laird's chamber waiting behind it. It's midnight now. The red hours have begun again. But I'm not in Castle Fraser anymore. Or maybe, Castle Fraser is in me. Because I can feel her. She's here, watching, smiling. And the worst part? When I looked in the mirror just now, I wasn't there. Only she was. Wearing my face, the end. I know you love horror stories like this one, and that's exactly why I'm here, to satisfy your cravings and give you that, nighttime adrenaline rush, so I'm asking for something in return. Come on, like this video, subscribe, and maybe, just maybe, you'll survive long enough to hear the next story. Adios.